Like, we're on Twitter. What are people saying about the lumber prices now?
That housing is going to follow.
Yeah, oh, housing's going to zero now. This is always leading to a housing price decline when lumber costs come down. Maybe a little bit, but it ain't coming down to pre-pandemic levels.
It's not. Yeah, here we go. Okay.
All right, what are we talking about?
Market update. I want to hear it from a realtor. Obviously, it's local to Windsor. Yeah, mics are working. Obviously, you're local to Windsor, so let's hear. Also, guys, let me know if you can hear us okay. I want to know if you guys can hear okay as well.
Yeah, should you put the mic this way?
What?
I don't know,
here?
whatever. Yeah.
Like this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just a thought, but we don't have the market stats for Windsor this particular month yet. They should be coming out soon, but just anecdotally, it's no supply and plenty of buyers, and the interest rate hike has been completely absorbed, it seems, and just the fundamentals are playing out. That's what I keep telling people.
So okay, but what's different? What is different from the last time we sat here? A week ago, 2 weeks ago, obviously things are moving really quick. Like, what are you seeing that's different in the market?
Yeah, like from the previous conversation.
Yeah, like from a home buyer perspective, and I don't mean necessarily like let's take it from two angles. Let's take it from the angle of a home buyer, seller, as well as investor, because you work with really all three, right?
Yeah. So it's a seller's market. From a home buyer's perspective, there's FOMO. There's definitely fear of missing out on.
Like, what are they thinking right now?
They're thinking sentiment? Like there's so few good listings, right? Depending on your price range, right? A good listing at $400K is different than a good listing at $1 million. So the properties that stand out, there's only so many of them. And when one of my buyers, for instance, sees a property that they really want, our first thought is, shoot, there's going to be multiple offers here. There's going to be a lot of people that want this property.
Is there multiple offers?
Yes, every time.
Like what are we talking here in Windsor right now?
I don't 4 to 10.
Really?
4 to 10, depending on like the price range and stuff like that.
That's crazy still.
If it's underlisted, which most properties are. So yeah, it's and then people are like, well, what's the problem? Why are there multiple offers? Why this? Why that? Is it because the properties are being underlisted? Is it because they're trying to blame whatever the case is? But in reality, it's because there's only one good property or two good properties or not enough houses to meet the demand of whatever particular segment that we're looking in. It's just the straight fundamentals that we always talk about.
Yeah.
Now, the things we can't predict are what's going to happen on June 7th with the rate hike. Yeah. Don't know.
Interesting.
But regardless of what happens with that rate hike, it's not going to fix the problem.
So, yeah, and the rate hike's coming when? Next week?
Well, the announcement. We don't know if it's going to be a hike or not.
Yeah.
But
what do you think?
I'm calling it like 50-50. I don't know. And the reason why, like a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to raise rates for sure. I can see them doing it because the inflation prints are still high.
Yeah.
But if you saw my post last time they announced inflation, what they said was a big portion of the inflation print was mortgage interest payments.
Did they said that?
Yes.
They stated it, yeah.
Well, I don't know if they stated it, but that's the statistic, right? Like it does, whatever. Like it was, if you took
something
out
like 0.8% of inflation was
pretty big chunk
mortgage interest,
a pretty big chunk. So if you took out mortgage interest, so if they raise rates again, it's going to make that inflation print even worse.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, well, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
That they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I keep going back to that. We keep saying the same thing. Even if they do, even if it causes home prices to come down a bit, it still doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
Which is
the supply and demand. Yeah.
So like I don't know what to tell people other than that. Actually, we always argue that it's going to make it worse.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's going to make it worse because
nobody's going to sell.
Nobody's going to sell and nobody's going to build.
Yeah,
builders are going to pause.
Yeah.
Like you have your Terry on. Like you could build right now.
Yeah.
You have properties on double lots.
Yeah.
Why aren't you building?
So construction. So this is also something that might be a little bit interesting for people to understand here. Lumber's come down significantly to pre-pandemic levels. Lumber, not everything else, not even close. Everything else is still considerably higher.
Like what? Labor,
concrete. Concrete's come down a little bit, but not nearly a little bit. Metal, plastic, even like I've seen certain things. I had to get some fittings for even my pool. The fucking fittings or like the junctions and stuff like that to connect hoses are like 4 times the cost.
Insane.
Like just dumb shit like that, plastic tubing, that at for example, a job site, I was talking to a couple contractors, at a job site, they would just give it away. They would just like throw it out, give it away. They'd let the job site little kids like, come in and pick up their scraps, and
now they're like hot commodities.
Yeah, now they're first of all billing people, and then they're also bringing it back to the shop because it's just too expensive now.
But here's what people don't. Most people only think one layer deep. What they don't see, well, why are those so expensive? The price of shipping has come down. This, not whatever. Yeah. Well, all the input costs are way up. Hydro, labor, rent for if you own a business or whatever the case is, taxes, property taxes, insurance, all these back end soft costs that we call them sometimes. Yeah, those are never coming down again. Yeah, like crazy. You think hydro costs are going to come down ever again? Yeah. Like you think some things never come down after inflation hits them. Yeah. I would argue even most things. For sure. And those most things are things that are not easily mass produced. Yeah. Those don't come down. Yeah. The markets will probably never balance. Those price, they might come down a bit, but they're not coming down to pre-pandemic levels is our point. It's
the same shit with gas. Yeah. They go up to a certain level, and then it's 2 steps forward, 2-3 steps forwards, 1 step back. Yeah. It's all the time. This is exactly what's happening.
During the 1 step back, people are like, "Oh, this is like," we're on Twitter. What are people saying about the lumber prices now?
That housing is going to follow.
Yeah, oh, housing's going to zero now. This is always leading to a housing price decline when lumber costs come down. Maybe a little bit, but it ain't coming down to pre-pandemic levels, which is what people are predicting.
Like I said, I have my Terry on or whatever you call it now, HCRA, whatever, building license. So I talk to a lot of developers and construction guys, tradesmen, like that kind of stuff. And the last guy I talked to was literally I had to get a HVAC guy out to my house and then another HVAC guy out to the golf course. And he's just shocked at, okay, I'll give you an example. A rooftop, like we're talking commercial. Pre-pandemic, I used to be able to get a rooftop unit for $9,000. Now they're $14,000-$15,000.
Was that 50%, 60% increase?
That's insane, man.
Yeah.
Like $5,000-$6,000 increase in just a rooftop. You don't, and that now that's just commercial. I haven't priced out a residential AC unit, but you don't think that it's going to be that much
10 or 15, it's going to be up. Yeah,
for sure.
Now, what happens when you're, as a landlord or a business owner, what happens when your costs go up?
Of course. Yeah, it's like, dude, I'm replacing hot water heaters right now, and they're up. They're up like an insane amount. And the labor to install that shit, because you can't just have I can't have my maintenance guy install it. I have to get a licensed, HVAC guy to install it because I got to disconnect the gas and all that bullshit, right? So for me to even install a fucking simple hot water heater is insane.
Yeah, and like building code is getting stricter. There's the green energy push. Like all this stuff is inflationary, right? Yeah. The green energy and new building code tied to green energy and energy efficiency and this insulation and this. You got to have tankless water heaters now, and all these things are input costs that developers and builders or business owners cannot just absorb. Yeah. You have to pass it on to the end user, which is why building's not getting more. It's not getting cheaper. Rents aren't getting cheaper. That's why rents are skyrocketing, and that's why product prices are going up as well. Yeah. So, I guess if we had to sum it up,
what are sellers like? What's the sentiment from sellers right now?
Sellers know that the market's strong, right? If you have a good agent, they're going to tell you what's going on. And then sellers typically have slightly unrealistically high expectations of their personal property anyways.
So what are you...
Just the way it is.
Are you seeing them come down in their expectations a little bit, given the fact that, the market has changed, rates are up? I'm under the impression right now that we're off from the peak within recent history, right?
Off of the peak prices?
Yeah, peak prices. Yeah, we're off. How much would you say that we're off peak prices?
I mean, it was $150,000 on average. Now it's maybe 75.
Maybe like percentage wise.
So it was like 20-25, and now we're probably cut that in half, 12,
Is that
13,
right, eh?
I would argue.
Okay.
And it's on the rise as well.
And
the reason for that is raising rates is an artificial way to lower prices of something.
Sure.
But in the end, what plays out?
Yeah,
supply and demand.
Yeah.
The only way to fix the problem is to build massive amounts of houses affordably.
Yeah.
Anybody building a house now, it's not going to be affordable for the reasons that we just talked about. Yeah. So seller sentiment is, they know it's a seller's market. They might have slightly unrealistic expectations, but people are generally a little bit in tune with the market. Hey, my neighbor's property sold for this, or hey, this out, whatever. So
what are they thinking in terms of, okay, they sell their property now, where are they going to go?
That's the hard part,
right? Yeah. What are you seeing them? What's the next step for them after they sell their home? What are you typically seeing them shift to? Not necessarily what type of house, but are they trying to upgrade? Are they downgrading? Are they moving out? What's happening here?
Yeah, you'd be upgrading.
They're upgrading. Yeah. The majority of your clients are upgrading.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the market's strong.
And they feel like they can afford it even with the higher rates.
Well, when the market's up, when I bought a raised ranch for $200K 15 years ago, and now it's $650, $700, I now have $600,000 to go plop down on a $900K mortgage, and then it becomes affordable again.
Yeah.
Like in that period of time, you built a lot of equity, almost everybody.
Yeah.
And then you also, you've probably gotten raise after raise after raise. It doesn't keep up with inflation, but you're still making more money.
Yeah.
And you have dual income and whatever the case is, and maybe a little bit more savings.
Yeah.
The rates are up, but there are so many counter forces that people don't look at.
Yeah.
And the big one is the equity gains. Unless you bought in the past 2 years at that peak of the market, if you bought any time before that 2-year window, which is the vast majority of people, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in anything, right? So huge chunks of cash, and people wouldn't buy them. You're going to the bank and you're getting qualified at 7%, 7.25%.
That's so crazy.
So they must be affordable.
Yeah.
Their income must support it.
They're affordable enough.
The banks the Canadian banks are on a global scale, we're very risk averse.
Yeah.
As a country, we have very strict regulation. Yeah, there's some loopholes and maybe there's some fraud out here and there, but people think there's mass fraud. It's a 0.5%.